Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Joshua Siluruka here, your host of the Impact Podcast Show. And before I even get into the podcast episode for this week, I would like to say thank you everyone that's listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. I want to say thank you so much for joining on board. Before I do start, I would like to state our mission. Our mission is simple. We're always wanting to focus on the one. So we're just wanting to impact one person and really start being intentional with, that one person. So I just wanted to kind of state that before I introduce to you guys our next special guest on the Impact Podcast Show. So we're going to get straight into it. Before I do introduce who this person is, I just want to say I am so thankful and honored that she actually reached out to me. She is actually our first female special guest on the Impact Podcast Show. To me personally, I wanted to bring someone in that the females can relate to, someone out there that can, bring the best out of, the females that will be jumping on board. But not only just that, I wanted to bring someone on board that the men could kind of understand too. I wanted to bring in a female that, not only can females connect to, but also males to connect to. So this person that I have on the other side, she is currently in Queensland at the moment. Yep, she's in Queensland.
Yeah.
And to me and my partner, we do honor her and her partner. They crack up. They're so funny. I can't hold it in. But all I gotta say is I'm so honored that she's taken the time out to jump on the Impact Podcast Show. She does a lot of content creating, that's for sure. She is one of the key influences that a lot of people in Western Sydney look up to, not just in the influence game, but also just on who she is. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear her story and to hear how she became who she is. And so, guys, I'd love to introduce to you Valaree Reekers.
Hey guys, thank you so much, Josh, for having me on this podcast. I'm so excited.
Yes. So first of all, I want to ask how your day is going.
Yeah, really good. Actually, we were just talking before about how I went grocery shopping because the weather is actually quite cold at the moment. I just had to go get some fruits to make some juices. So yeah, getting that started and pretty much just trying to get all our content planned out for the week as well. We were meant to film this afternoon, but I guess our plans have changed, but that's all good. It's an honor to be on this podcast.
Yes, I thank you so much for jumping on board. So I'm excited because I feel like the ladies are gonna love to hear your story and how you do all this content creating, all the skits that you do. But I feel like there are a lot of guys out there that would probably be curious to know how they can find a Valaree in their life. Maybe not. I'm not too sure. But we never know.
Oh, that's so.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll probably get straight into it. Could you kind of share to, I know that there'll be a lot of females that will understand who you are, but I know that there will be a lot of new people that probably don't really know who you are. So could you kind of share to the viewers and the listeners on who you are?
Yeah. So my name's Valaree, of course. I'm originally from Auckland, New Zealand, Onehunga. That was the suburb that I was born and raised in. And then I moved to Australia when I was 12. So I've been in Australia for quite a while. My dad got a job in Brisbane, so we made the big move to Brisbane. And majority of my family have all moved over to Australia as well. So yeah. A bit about me and what I do on social media is I do a bit of content creating, like videography, like Josh was saying before, just content creating with skits and things like that. So yeah, I guess that's just a little briefing about me. I guess we'll get more into what I got to say is, yeah, that's who I am. And I'm also Samoan, Tongan, and Dutch. That is my background.
Yo. That's very good. Yeah, I just seen something at the back, but it's okay.
Oh, no. That was actually Chris in the back. He's actually laying on the bed behind me.
Oh, that's okay.
And I'm kind of, he left the room. I'm like, yes, thank goodness. It's probably like, why are you lying for? Why are you being all like saying you can make juices? Probably not make juices. He's like, were you just talking about Hungry Jacks just before? I'm like, oh.
Yeah, true. So, so you were born in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yep, came over to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
What was the purpose? What was the purpose of? I know it wasn't for you, but for your father.
Yeah, so my dad works in construction, so he got a really good job in Brisbane, Australia. My mum's brother was already living in Australia, and he just kept talking it up, saying that was the life, and Australia is just the best. We did definitely when it comes to income and just starting up here. I feel like New Zealand is very expensive when it comes to buying properties, or the income there isn't as good. So my dad had the opportunity to come to Australia and start working in construction and to be paid good money for it. So, yeah, I'm actually really grateful that we did move to Australia, simply because everything that's happened in the way the life that I get to live now is honestly the biggest blessing. And I just think of every little decision that has been made in my childhood has led to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I always count my lucky stars, always. So,
Yeah. No, it's so good. It's so good. I feel like sacrifice is something that a lot of our parents would know. They would know really well in terms of sacrifice and
definitely.
I love that. I love that. Like, just imagine if your father didn't make that decision, where you would be. It'd be different, eh?
Yeah, and it was really hard as well, because I was raised by my grandma, so leaving all of my family was very difficult. And it was only a couple years, because my grandparents ended up moving over to us anyways, but still, like, that whole experience of being apart from all of your close family, especially my grandparents who raised and brought me up, was really hard. So but that's a sacrifice that we had to make. So yeah,
there is power. There is power in sacrifice, and obviously, time will tell when we get to that point where you'll have your future children, and that time will come.
Yes, that's so
that.
True.
That's cool. That's cool. That's so that's really cool. So I wanted to for like, as I mentioned beforehand. I really want to kind of ask you some, just some questions that we could kind of get into your story, into your upbringing, because one thing that I do believe in is that before the glory, there's always a story. There's always a story behind the glory, and like I guess for people out there, they probably see it as like a really highly influential person in their life, and so to me, I'm like, with Valaree, like, Valaree does have she is successful in what she does, but there's always a story behind it. And I always know that there's some highs and lows that you've probably experienced too, which I would love to get into.
Definitely.
Because I really feel that, people need to hear the truth. People need to understand that this doesn't just come, it's not an overnight success, but there's actually, work to get into. So
definitely.
I want to jump on a journey. Like, I want to get onto a journey to the, this afternoon, to kind of get, the people to understand who you are and what your story really is. So, I'm excited. Like, I'm pretty excited to get into that. And I guess the first thing I want to kind of ask you is, like, how was your upbringing? Growing up. How was your upbringing? In
Oh, yeah, definitely can go into that. So like I said before, I was born and raised in Auckland, New Zealand, only Hunga. I went to St. Joseph's Primary, and I did, church was a big part of my life growing up as well. So my family is Efakasa, and we went to the Efakasa church in Onehunga. So, being a Christian and being raised in a church, there was a strong foundation of, spirituality and, God. And there was a strict routine, going to church every Sunday and, gonga'is and things like that, reading the Bible in the afternoons. That's how I sort of learned how to speak Samoan as well. So, I guess the church, my grandparents plays a massive role in what I know about my culture and what I know about the Samoan language. And yeah, so that was pretty much me as my childhood was church, reading the Bible, locals, afiafis in the afternoon. But obviously when we came to Australia, that kind of did lose its way a little bit when I was separated from my grandparents. But as soon as they moved over to Australia, that was all lifted up again, and all of that structure came back into our household, which I'm so grateful for, because, you know, in today's world and today's society, it's really hard for our young Pacific people to learn the culture and to learn the language. And yeah, so I'm definitely grateful for that. That's my childhood. That's all I can pretty much say. Up until now, like obviously having Chris in, we actually met when I was 19. So when he came along, he already had a love for our culture, because a lot of his friends were predominantly Samoan. So I guess he did have that bit of tool to sort of spark me. I was like, oh, okay, this Valaree can speak Samoan. That's so for me, that was nice. So, but yeah, I mean, him coming into our family at the start was not easy at all. It wasn't, when I say easy, I mean, it wasn't easy for him, you know, like it was quite daunting and confronting for him to come into my family, because my grandparents were very protective of me, obviously, with them raising me. So introducing him to my grandparents was an obstacle in itself. But compared to then and to where we are now, if you were to ask me then, I would not have thought that we would be where we are now as a couple. And to be honest, let's just say that my granddad and my grandma love Chris so much. Like, they adore him. So, yeah, I think I did good. I did pretty good. I think for them, they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't making any mistakes of, you know, I guess the typical island fear was getting pregnant at a young age and not fulfilling your life goals before, you know, starting a family and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, that's just in a little timeline. That's from then into where I am now. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, man. Like, it's cool because it actually gets me to work with something. You know, it's like
that's
you
good.
come in with a blank canvas, and then you get someone like yourself to paint a bit. And I'm like, oh, sweet, I got the paints ready. So no, I love it. I love that you shared about, you know, your upbringing in Auckland, and how you know that God, you know, going to the church and, you know, reading the Bible, and like even just like listening to you and you sharing that. You went from going within a strict environment and then heading into Australia where it's like kind of loose, like it's been loosened. How did you feel then? Like how did that go in terms of the transition?
It was different because obviously I was still in primary school coming to Australia, so there wasn't much dynamic there. But I guess in New Zealand there was so much culture and so much structure when it came to the Samoan culture. So coming to Australia, you just kind of see that it has lost its way a little bit along the way with a lot of Australian-born, you know, Samoans, as opposed to New Zealand. It's a lot stronger there. So for me, I guess I was just lucky to have my grandparents move over and to keep that stability within our household when it comes to, you know, your morals, your respect, and your whaaaloalo and things like that. So, yeah, I think I could see other people losing their way a little bit. And I did find myself every now and then losing my way a little bit as well, with not speaking enough Samoan and things like that. But I guess I've just always had that feeling deep down to know that to always stay grounded and to always remember not to forget, you know, the morals that were taught to me as a young child. So I didn't actually really struggle with it at all, or didn't find it hard. I think I just, with my grandparents and my parents and my family as my foundation, I was able to make sure that, yeah, my morals and respect and all those sorts of things were held strong. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that you share that because, you know, for myself, right, I'm half Tongan, half Māori. You know, dad's Tongan, mum's Māori, and
Oh,
you know,
nice.
for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
I was born and bred here. You know, I was born in Australia,
Yeah.
grew up in Australia, and you know, the one thing I guess, you know, if I had to look at my siblings, I'm probably like the most, like probably the one person that doesn't look cultured, but probably the only one that would be
Yeah.
keen to actually be cultured, like, you know, learn all the, you know, all the
Yeah.
languages and like, you know, it's crazy because I remember thinking to myself like, why was I always the one that got chucked into leading hackers and certain things like that? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, so I
Yeah.
think I was the only one that was probably just as keen to get into like more in terms of like the leadership side of things. Like I was always
Yeah.
keen
Yeah.
to lead. You know, like my brother, like he was a bit shy, certain things like that, and he already knows that himself. But
Yeah.
I guess, you know, for myself, like, you know, if I had to change one thing, I'd wanted to learn probably more about my culture in terms of the language. Like that was probably one thing that
Yeah.
I've been so keen on like wanting to learn.
Yeah.
So then I can teach my future kids, you know,
Yeah.
the same thing. So
Definitely. And like with that, that's all it takes is just to be like, you may feel shamed, and that's something like with Samoan Language Week just passing recently. It's something that was like kind of going over in my head was that there's a lot of our generation that have a bit of like they're shy, they're unconfident, and they don't have, you know, the confidence to be able to learn, and they feel like they're going to get made fun of or, you know, be mocked. But if you're trying, that's more than enough, you know,
yeah,
like you have to educate yourself so that you can teach your children. And I feel that's something that's so important. And yeah, if you're trying, that's all that matters, to be honest. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And I love that you shared that when you moved from New Zealand to here that you didn't change, like you didn't change as much because you know, you could have been slowly lured into changing into like
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
Australia and
And
just getting rid of the
yeah.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when I say like some have lost their way, it's only, I feel like family is your number one key with, you know, keeping you grounded and keeping you humble and just making sure that, you know, you're not losing your way when it comes to culture or your morals, your respect and things like that. And traditions is definitely something that needs to be kept in family households as well, like whether it be a family tradition to come together in the afternoon and sing a song, like those sorts of things is what kept me grounded with staying true to who I am and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like your parents too. You know, they kept it. They kept the standards there.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I guess, you know, for me personally, just from a personal kind of point of view, people don't realize how important, you know, parents are in our lives. They don't realize, and I think
So
some
true.
parents, yeah, some parents don't realize that as much. You know, when they grow up, they're like,
Yeah.
no, sorry, when they're looking after us, they're like, oh yeah, like they won't know. It's like now we know, like we know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's so,
cool
oh my
that they
gosh,
didn't talk.
yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one as well. I haven't said much about my parents, but I'll just go briefly and
Yo,
about them. So my mum is Samoan, so she is New Zealand born. She always uses her childhood to sort of teach me as well, because for her, as a young child, she said that she had to be the translator for my grandparents when they were, you know, like back in New Zealand, because
yeah,
they didn't know much English. And so my grandparents had actually taught my mum Samoan before she even knew English, because they said when you go to school, you're going to learn English. So my mum went to school, like started school as a little freshie because she didn't know how to speak English because the household language was fully Samoan. But that's something my mum's truly grateful for, because now she is fluent in Samoan and she obviously has very good English. So that's something that, you know, she is very proud of, and something that I do look up to her for that, for knowing how to speak fluent Samoan as well as being good in English. And my dad, he is half Tongan, half Dutch. So with my dad, I don't really ever get to see much of my Tongan family as much as I would like to. However, Samoan Language Week also made me realize that it's not just about learning one culture. It's about embracing all your culture and your identity, like where you come from, your ancestors and things like that. So that's something that I've been really onto myself about, is learning more about the Tongan culture and going more into depth of the Dutch and where my dad's family is from in Holland and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like, thank you for actually sharing about your parents, because that was actually
that's okay. I was like, I think I've spoken about my grandparents. I probably should talk about my parents, and like they were also young parents as well. They had me at quite a young age. So, growing up, even though I was raised by my grandparents, I did, get to see their struggles of being young parents growing up. And I guess now that I'm in my own relationship with my own partner, I just use the different lessons from watching them as a couple, and what not to do and what to do now that I'm an adult. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking, like, just as you were sharing, like you mentioned about your mum, and you mentioned that your mum would share stories, childhood stories. Am I correct? Was that yep?
Yes, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I love that she's done that, because I was doing a study, I was listening to a podcast, something like that, and I started to realize for us, growing up, I started to realize that we actually learned a lot more in terms of stories. Like if our parents had shared stories, we would probably listen out a lot more, as opposed to them just telling us, facts. Like, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, can you share to me a story? And then I'll listen,
And it's nice to know that, when your parents are trying to tell you something, and to know that they actually went through it. That's why they're telling you that. Yes. That is like also like, and as I'm growing, I'm like, everything my mom has said, I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I know what you mean. And I mean, my mum's childhood was a lot tougher than mine, because my grandparents are very, very strict and old school. Samoan, like hidings played a big part in her life. So she always uses that as an example. She says like, "You're so lucky." When I was young, I was never allowed to go to my friend's house. Like it was just stay home, do the owls, like do your chores and things like that. So like. Sometimes, because she raised me, like I was raised a bit differently to how she was raised, so she always used that as an example. She's like, you should feel lucky. I want you to know how lucky you are. And I guess we won't know until we have our own children or what our parents actually meant. But I do agree with what you said, how using their stories to teach us lessons is the best way to go about it. 100%.
Yeah, and I think for everyone out there who have kids now, or even parents out there, like maybe take this as a kind of motivation for you to do when you do become parents, because at the end of the day, we're not going to be staying the same age for the rest of our life, even though some people want to. But that's not the truth. So it's probably best to get some nuggets out of this. That's why we have the Impact Podcast show. We're here to impact people, and we're here to give to the people too, which is cool. But I was like mesmerized by what you mentioned about your mum sharing stories. Because for me, like I'm the same too with my mum. Like my mum would share stories, and I'd be like, okay, sweet, I'm not gonna do that now, because you told me that story, and I know it's probably not gonna work out, which is cool, which is really, really cool. But I guess the next question I want to ask you is, just like in anything in life, there's there's always some setups and some setbacks, and I want to kind of get a bit deeper now, into the podcast episode that we have now, and I'm guessing that in your life there's been somewhat of a a setback, or a moment where you feel like things weren't going too well, or there's something in your family, something may have happened. If you do have one, it would be cool for you to share a bit, especially for the listeners out there. I really want to kind of explore and get real deep
Yeah,
and
yeah,
get real raw and authentic, at this
yeah.
time. And so I guess my question to you is, what's some of the setbacks that you've gone through?
Yeah, definitely. I guess we're actually dealing with one at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So with our household dynamics, so the past 2 weeks, our household dynamics have changed dramatically. So I have shared a little bit and touched a little bit about this topic on my Instagram through a few videos. So my grandma has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, and she was in a rest home last year. She was put in a rest home last year, but and she was doing fine. She was doing well. Like with Alzheimer's and dementia, it's a nasty, nasty disease and illness. And yeah, so she was in a rest home, and we would go visit her. The whole family were there every day, making sure that the time was spent with her. The reason why she did be put into rest home was because obviously it was just too much, and it was just too much for anyone to be able to handle. And for us as Pacific Islanders, it was kind of hard to do that, especially for my family, and that was a struggle. But we, when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, it requires a lot of strength and a lot of support that obviously we couldn't give her. So she had to go so she was in a rest home. Fast forward, with COVID-19 happening, all those restrictions were put in place, so we could not see her, and we hadn't seen her in 5 weeks.
Wow.
We were only able to FaceTime her, and for our whole family, that was so hard and so difficult. And I think everyone was dealing with it in their own way. So after the restrictions were lifted, my mum went and saw her, and pretty much my mum just said, no, she's coming home. It's not working. With her not being able to see her family, it played a big toll on her illness. She was pretty much going downhill. So my mum just pretty much called a big family meeting. We all got together, and we just made the decision just to bring her home. So she came home, I think it's been about just 3 weeks now. She's been home.
Yep.
And we've had to, renovate the downstairs room, change everything, like high equipment, so that she's able to, be at home comfortably and get all the needs that she needs, or all the equipment that she requires for her needs. So, yeah, and our whole family has come together and worked together really well to accommodate for her. And, as difficult as it is having her home, the positive outcome of it all has outweighed the negative 100%. And like, if she hasn't got much time, and if this illness is going to be taking her away, we just want to make sure that the time that she has left, we're going to spend that time with her, just being there with her. And since she's been home, there has been a massive progress in her behavior and everything like that. So yeah, it's been really comforting for our family to have her home. She is definitely the foundation in our family when it comes to our culture and our traditions, and everything that we know has been taught from her. So having her home has brought that dynamic up again. And and all my family have been coming, because obviously they've come to visit her, and we all take turns in taking care of her. So yeah, it's been really nice. The home has been filled with family. And I guess because Chris we all live together, and for me and Chris, I think we've absolutely loved having her home. And I think, this whole COVID thing, even though it was crap, I don't know how to, it was crap, but there were some positives that came out of it, and that was bringing her home to us. So yeah, it's definitely full on in the household at the moment, but we wouldn't have had it any other way. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I really do.
No, that's okay.
It. And I think that people will appreciate you sharing. And I guess the question I want to ask you from this is, like, what's some of the things that you've learned, through that setback that you've had recently? Because I can hear a lot of revelations. I can hear a lot of things that you've learned. So could you kind of share?
Yeah, definitely. definitely like spirituality and faith has definitely been the number one for both Chris and I. I think with this obstacle, like obviously life happens, you can't stop, anything from happening, but you can control how you deal with it. And faith and spirituality is something that we definitely have been implementing into our routine, and it's helped us because it gives us that sense of grounding and that that comfort. And just when there's so much chaos and there's so much stress, you just have, for us, it's very personal for us. So all I can say is that we've implemented into our routine where we get up in the mornings and we use that time in the mornings together before we start our day to, pray. And and for my nana's the one that taught me that. She taught me to, always pray and be close to God and build that relationship with God. So that's one way of how we deal with it. And I guess back to the content creating, I think sharing, using videography as a source or like a platform to sort of express how I'm feeling. So that's probably the two things that I can think of. And fitness, that is definitely something as well. Just to drain the energy. If you've got that negative energy, just train hard, and you'll be too tired to even be thinking about the negatives. So for us, that's I guess those are the three main things. And also our health as well. We're always making sure that we're eating good and we're open, and Chris and I, we always express our emotions, how we're feeling. Something that I struggle with is expressing how I feel, but Chris and I work on that together as a couple, and I think that's sort of a few ways of how we deal with these setbacks.
I love that. I love that you shared it like that, because everyone has their kind of default situation. Like when they're going through an issue, there's usually something that they fall back on. And I can hear and I can sense that if it wasn't for your grandma, and even your grandparents actually instilling values and life into you back then, you probably wouldn't even drawn back onto it. Which for me personally, I always say to myself, like, Josh, you got to be so grateful for your parents, for your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles that instilled in you values, and instilling in you boundaries and grounding. Because if you weren't given that, you'll be a little broke boy on the street, thinking that you're all cool. Which is cool, and I love that. I love that you shared that, because these are things that people need to hear. People need to realize that there's a reason why our parents, our grandparents, like our elders are telling us these things. Like they're trying to apply wisdom and give us things. So that we're able to become better.
That's so true. Yes. Agree, 100%.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And so, I want to say thank you so much for sharing that. For me, I always like to honor and acknowledge people who share. Yeah. Because it isn't easy. It isn't easy at all.
Yeah, I was kind of getting a little bit teary. I'm like, just hold it. You can do it. You can do this. You got this.
It's all good.
I guess, I've never actually shared that. It's very personal, and it's not something that like I'm trying to share it with the platform that I have, because there are other families out there who are dealing with the same issue that I'm dealing with losing their loved ones to Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's definitely something that I would love to bring awareness to. However, I have to do it at my own pace, and so thank you for bringing that out of me without me bawling my eyes out.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. But I appreciate you sharing that. People don't realize that it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy to share things like this, especially when it's, real personal. So I really appreciate you talking about that.
That's okay.
And so, so in terms of the lessons that you learned, from this, I want to kind of talk briefly about, because you mentioned about the COVID season, right? We're still in the COVID season. Restrictions are slowly opening out. What's some of the lessons that you learned from there?
Oh, plenty. I've learned so much. I think one thing that I've learned is not to go into a hard situation or a pandemic, for an example, with the mindset of, oh, it's going to go bad, everything's going to be like, try and be positive, because if you see the positive side to it all, you will find, different elements that can benefit you, whether it be, health and fitness, things like hobbies. I don't know. When we went into the pandemic, everything kind of spiraled quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it started all with the gyms. I think that was like,
me too.
we were like, okay, this is our last session. What are we going to do about it? We went to Rebel Sports and people were panic buying equipment. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, things are getting pretty intense. And then we actually had a couple friends who were living in Sydney, Australia, but it was time for them to go back to the UK. However, they tried to go back, but obviously due to the coronavirus, they weren't allowed to leave the country. So they stayed with us for a bit, and we spent a lot of time at home and being with my family and staying home and drinking at home instead of going out with my friends on a Friday and Saturday. Oh man, I've just appreciated it so much more. Like, it's just been nice because my granddad always has Friday drinks with Chris, and we're always getting ready to go somewhere. So we'll have like a few drinks with him before we have to go to either a birthday or, some type of event. But he actually sat down and was like to Chris, oh, it's so nice you guys not going anywhere. I get to have you here with me all night. And they made my heart like, oh my gosh, like, he doesn't get to go anywhere. He stays home majority of the time. So he appreciated our company, and I definitely appreciated his company and spending time with family. So that's definitely one thing that has changed due to the COVID-19, but it's been a positive change. Another thing, back to the fitness thing, we've had to make changes within our routine because we would usually go to the gym every morning. So training at home has become an option for us that we've had to take on, and I feel like I am my most fittest and strongest at the moment because I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think because when you're at a gym in a public setting, you've got all these distractions because, you have your friends and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I loved it. That's one thing I miss about the gyms. However, when we're at home, I think we're just so focused and we really push each other. So, and I've noticed the amount of dogs that we have in our street. Like, oh my gosh, we've got so many cute dogs because we're running. We're using our street as a source to do our fitness, exercising and all that kind of stuff. So things like that, where things that you just don't take notice of around your home, those are the sorts of things that, COVID-19 has really helped me with. And I guess for us, we've had more time to just be at home and work on our content. Our content has definitely become a lot stronger because we have more time. We're not out socializing. We don't have 100 birthdays to attend to, and we're saving money as well, which is another thing. And, like going into the pandemic, it was kind of worrying. But now that we've come this far, I'm like, I actually benefited from it. Like it actually helped me. So, so I think for us, it's been really good. I mean, as unfortunate as it is, people losing their lives and the way other countries are dealing with it and other, around the world, that's unfortunate. But I'm just trying to see the positives, and those are the positives that we've experienced. Another thing is our wedding. It's affected our wedding as well. We were meant to get married next year in Greece. So that's been postponed for now. We still don't know because apparently they said that travelling won't be commencing till 2023. So I think for us, we're just putting that on hold and just trying to work on our goals that we were going to try and smash out after the wedding and just push them forward and push the wedding back. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that you shared about I was thinking about like how diamonds are formed. Like people don't know diamonds are formed through applied pressure. So that's what it sounds like. I think a lot of people don't they don't see it for. Oh no, they see it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
They see that it's a pandemic. We're going through a situation where everything, like, people are passing away. Gyms are closing, certain things like that. But I think a lot of people don't realize that through this time, this is where we're actually being formed to our real self. Because,
Yes.
I'm starting to realize that. I was like the same as you guys. When the gym closed,
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
kind
"Are you
of
serious? What the heck?" And then as I started to progress weeks on, I started to realize I'm probably at my best now in terms of my fitness, my health, and just life in general. Because I realized that I had to look for a way.
Yes,
I had
that's
to.
it.
I always believe in that. If you can't find a way, you make a way.
Yes,
You think
that's
about
so true.
you think about our ancestors and our
Yeah.
elders. Like they didn't have a compass. Like they had to use the
The navigating.
nature.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
navigating, right? So,
Yeah.
I guess for people out there that are listening, like I guess it's all about the way you see it. It's all about the
Exactly.
perspective.
And you have more control in your perspective over decisions that are out of your control, or don't be mad at the world. Just step back and think, how can I make this a positive? How can I look at the bright side of this whole situation? And like, look at it makes it also. Another thing I wanted to add to that was kind of things you take for granted, you have a more of appreciation for as well. Like the simple things, like going out and having a lunch at a cafe, those small things that seems like, oh yeah, whatever, go out to lunch. But now it's like, oh, we get to go out to lunch. Like the restrictions have lifted, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I would never take it for granted ever again. And just things like that. Yeah, it's just the simple and the little things.
Yeah, 100%. And I always think about it. I guess some people don't realize the true beauty behind it until it's taken away.
So
once
true.
it's taken away from you, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, like where is it? Where is it gone? And I guess people need to understand that in this life that we live, things are going to be taken away from us.
Yes,
eventually.
so true.
And I guess just to touch briefly about it. I guess with your grandma and what's going on with her. I guess I can sense that within your family, it's brought everyone kind of together.
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
somewhat of a unity coming through.
Yes, definitely. Yes, like I was saying before, a lot of family are coming through because obviously they're all playing their part in taking care of her. So it's nice. I get to see my cousins more often, and like my aunties and uncles are always over, and you have more meaningful conversations. Like before she was home, I only ever saw them every now and then.
Yeah.
But because she's home, everyone's putting their input in, and everyone's doing their part to make sure that she's being looked after well. So yeah, it's been really, really good. I've loved it.
Yeah, which I love because I'm on the same page too. I'm looking at it, I'm like, I reckon COVID like had to come for me to actually break out of my shell and actually reach out. So like long story short, with the Impact podcast show, just a little brief story. I started this in August, right? August of 2019.
Yeah.
And I was just doing like my own stuff. Like I was just sharing knowledge. And then I started to realize probably 3 months in that things weren't working out. Like I was like, why am I getting attention? Why isn't people coming in and listening to my stuff? I've got so much value to provide. And then there was actually a point where I was going to let this all go. I was actually going to let go of this podcast because I felt that, no one cared about it. And like no one cared about, the value that I was bringing. And then I just turned out to be, I just found out that it was the way that I was doing it. I wasn't reaching, I wasn't being as intentional as other people. And then I started to do this. I said, you know what? I'm just going to interview people because the one thing I love doing is I love asking questions, and I love actually allowing people to kind of share their story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
And then coming to this point now, 3 months in, I reckon it's probably been the best thing. I've just been doing Zoom calls and having conversations with people through Zoom.
Wow.
And it's been like a blessing in disguise for me coming through.
That's so awesome. And see, like, you had that opportunity to give up, but you didn't, like that's something that is so important, is when you feel like you have these setbacks or you feel like you have nothing left to give or you just want to give up. just push that little longer. Just seek and you will find. So that's really awesome, bro. That's really cool. And I like that you didn't just give up. You found another way around it. Like you said, if there's a will, there's a way. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And so, yeah, that's why, like, when it comes to the podcast, I'm like, I'm going to go hard out. I'm going to go hard as, because I realized that, this is one thing that I was, like, going to let go completely. Like, I was going to chuck it in the bin and be like, that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And, I guess that's an encouragement for everyone out there that, when you're feeling like the going gets tough, I guess that's where you're tested. Like, you are being, tested, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually. And then you always got to think about, what's the real why? And so my question to you, it's leading into my actual question is, what motivates you to keep going? I'm looking at you. You're a content creator, videographer, and you're working. And then you've also got these, the pandemic, the coronavirus, COVID-19 situation happening, and then you also have your grandma who's experiencing illness. So with all this happening in your life, what keeps you going? What motivates you? What's your why?
I think for me, there's always passion there. When it comes to content creating, it's always been a passion. I mean, I'm not saying that like 24/7, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to edit another video. Like I do get moments where I feel unmotivated and that's completely normal. You don't like to stay motivated isn't being motivated 24/7. It's feeling the moments where you feel like you have no more ideas, the dry moments, all those sorts of things. It's feeling them and reviewing them and then trying to just think really hard. So that's definitely one thing, is just to not push yourself way too hard. And passion. Like for me, I'm always passionate about content creating, especially when it comes to the whole social media things like the skits and all that kind of stuff. Another thing is my audience that I've built over the time period is definitely something that keeps me motivated. Just the messages that I get from people on a daily basis, and I just get so surprised. Like some people message me saying that I've inspired them to start vlogging, and for me that's like, whoa, I inspired someone to start vlogging. That's really cool. And because vlogging takes a lot of confidence and, to put yourself out there like that. So to know that I'm helping people in a way that they can achieve whatever they want as well, that's definitely something that motivates me as well. And I guess having supportive people surround me as well. Like my family are super supportive, and most importantly, Chris as well. Like he definitely is.
He's the man.
Holds me accountable. He's definitely. He is amazing. Like when I feel unmotivated, he is definitely the voice that's like, "Come on, you can do this." So, yeah. So I guess, those are the sort of things that keeps me motivated: is the people, the audience, my passion for it, my family and my friends, and and also my people as well. It's been, I think, like I was saying before, I've been reflecting a lot on my culture. So if there's one thing that I've noticed about the social media world and influencers and things like that, is there's not enough, poly people out there. And that's something that I'm willing to push forward so that, we can get more poly influencers and more, I actually don't really like the word influencer. I mean, as in like leaders, poly leaders who can use social media as a platform to use their voice, share their talents, inspire other people. So that's also another thing as well.
Yes, I love it. I love that you shared about passion, because passion is so important. If you don't have a passion for something, and it was actually a talk that I did on Sunday. I done a live video, and I was just sharing that you want to chase the passion, not the money. Like you want to focus on chasing the passion, because the more that you start chasing the passion, then the money will start to draw upon you. Like the people will start drawing like towards you. But then if you're focusing on the money, then you have to look for the passion, and obviously it's not going to weigh out well. Which sounds a bit right, because you have a passion in content creation, creating content, creating your skits, And like it makes sense, it makes sense as to why you continue to do it. Because just like myself, I did have a passion on doing this, speaking in a microphone and sharing my views and my stories. But what was the real big thing behind the Impact Podcast Show was actually I actually want to bring people on. I want to bring people on, and because I feel like your story can impact more people, or just as much people than my story. And like having two people come together just in one podcast, we're actually making an impact, a lot more of an impact together than just myself, which I love.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah. So so I I was listening to you talking about your why. You mentioned about Chris, who I would love to start having a conversation with now, because one of the things that drew me to you was I actually just watched a video. Someone shared it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, sweet. I just jumped on. I'm like, bro, these guys are crack up. I was like, these guys are funny, and it was cool because you guys are like relatable. Like a lot of people, even us, PIs, like we're able to relate to what you're sharing and what you're doing, and I'm like, yo, these guys are crack up. But I wanna talk about your relationship with Chris. I wanna talk about your relationship, because I'm curious, right? I'm a curious guy. I'm in a relationship myself, and I'm wanting to know how you guys do life together, and then like kind of get into the content creation, because because you guys honestly, like, to me, like me personally, like I see you guys as real role models in terms of PI community. Because as much as you guys are doing funny things, like I personally feel that bringing sense of humor into your skits, bringing sense of humor into conversations, really allows people to open up, and really allows them to be like, what, okay, my day wasn't as bad as I thought. And which I love, about you guys. So I want to have a chat quickly, just briefly on you and Chris. And your relationship. So did you want to kind of share about how you guys met? Okay.
Okay. It's because we're being raw and honest. So, so we actually met through a friend. So we were out. So we met through a friend, and I guess he's actually behind me right now. So. Yeah, he pretty much stalked me. He wanted me really badly. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Nah. He's just laughing a little bit. Okay, no, but seriously, so I think, we met through a friend, and he messaged me, and at the time our family was going through a loss, so he messaged me, kept asking me on a date, but I was like, yeah, and then I think I said yes, and then last minute pulled out because obviously we had a loss in our family, so it was a busy time. But I think now that when we talk about it, he actually thought that I was just ghosting him. And I was like, no, but because like my family was my witness. But fast forward, I finally said yes to a date, and after he was very persistent, and mate, it's just really funny because he's sitting right there. After a couple of dates, I think it was only like 3 dates actually. He met my parents on the second date, and then he met my grandparents. I think it was on the 4th date. Was it? On my birthday. Yeah. So it was my birthday, and I think my parents were like, nah, we're sick of lying to your grandparents for you, because I had to actually tell them when I was going on a date, like, oh, I'm going to my friend's house, I'm going to my cousin's house, but really I was going to see Chris. And so there was a lot of that going on, and I was 18 at the time, and my grandparents were still very strict. Like I wasn't allowed to go out anywhere, like wasn't allowed to go clubbing, things like that. Like there was a big no-no. It was just church, because I was involved in the youth and things like that. So anyways, my grandparents met him on my birthday, and I think my mum said, if you want to keep seeing Chris, you need to tell your grandparents. And for me, that was daunting, because like, oh my gosh, like my grandparents did not take it well as well. Like they were like, no. you want a boyfriend, then we will never talk to you again. That was pretty much how it was. Like, honestly, it was so hard. And I think that was a big struggle for me because I love my grandparents so much. But, you know, I was 19, I found the love of my life. So, like, what was I supposed to do? So I was like, oh, and then I kind of had to step back and think. So I kind of just stood my ground. Like, I was like, no. I was like, I really love this person and I want you to meet him. And if I'm giving you the opportunity because I love you guys and I want you to meet him. And for them, they were like, still, nah, stubborn, nah, not going to happen. So then we set up a time for him to come and meet my grandparents, which was on my 19th birthday. So he came over and he sat down and, oh my gosh, my heart was beating so fast. I was literally like shaking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if he will probably leave my house today and never talk to me again, because I was just so scared of what my grandparents were going to say. And so he sat down, and then my whole family, my uncles were there, like everyone was there. And the first thing, I think this wasn't my nana or my do you remember, Chris?
Oh, what part?
Oh, I think it was my grandma. She looked Chris in the eye and she said, do you love my granddaughter? Like straight up. Like in front of everyone. And then he looks at it and he's like, I love your granddaughter. And then I was in the kitchen like melting onto the floor. Like I was like, oh my gosh. And then they're like, will you take care of her? And he's like, yeah, I will take care of her. And then my granddad jumped in and was like, yeah, you better take care of my granddaughter. You have to. How much do you love her? And then Chris was like, I love her very much. He must have been shitting. I mean, he must have been crapping himself. Sorry. And I was just like, I just remember like my heart racing. And then, yeah, they pretty much just said to him, yeah, we love our granddaughter very much. This is, you know, that's why we're so protective of her. And we just hope that you can take good care of her and we trust you. And we welcome you to the family. So that was it. And that was all done. And then from then on, Chris was sleeping in the garage when he would come over because, you know, I sleep in the same room. We went through that whole stage. Like, yeah, it was no touchy. Like, you know, in our culture, it's not, you know, all that sort of stuff. So for him, being Balangi, he adapted really well. He was like, nah, I get it. Like, that's part of your culture. We can't do that, and we can't sleep in the same bed. You can't sleep at my house. All those sorts of things. He was like, nah, I'm willing to do that. So yeah, because my grandparents obviously believe that marriage, you know, before sleeping in the same room, and that was, you know, a lot of my Balangi friends were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys can't sleep in the same room. But I'm like, that's just, you know, the morals that my family have raised me with. So we had to have that in our relationship. That played a big part at the start. But over time, my grandparents have just adored and built this relationship with Chris where they respect and they love him. And honestly, sometimes I feel like they like him more than me. Because he's willing to learn the culture. He goes and buys books to teach himself. That is how much Chris loves our culture, and you know the different elements about not only the Samoan culture but the Pacific culture as well. You know, the Polynesian culture, and him having a lot of friends. He's had that support as well. You know, like when it comes to things that he's just a bit confused about, that you know things that we do differently compared to other families. He's just like, oh, you know, I don't know, do I really have to give that much money? Like that's a lot of money, like things like that. But you know, he's seeked that advice from his friends, and he's had that support from his friends. And yeah, for him, you know, dating a poly girl has been a big wake-up call, but everything that he's learned has built him to be the man that he is today, and he takes ownership for that. So yeah,
that's so cool. I love it. I love these stories because you know, these are stories that not a lot of people get to hear. To listen. And you know, I guess for, I don't know, a Balangi guy out there that is wanting to get a poly girl, listen to this story. Get some insight.
And Chris, you know, he gets messages from some Balangi guys, or you know, other guys from different cultures that are dating Polynesian women, and they're like, oh, it's like, it's hard. And Chris is like, I'm sorry, also it's the way it is.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 100%,
just accept
100%.
it. Like, if you really love her, that's true love. Like, you have to, and I think everything that I love about Chris and everything that he loves about me, you have to make those sacrifices to be with that person. And, that's the whole beauty about it, about our culture as well, is that he's willing to make certain sacrifices to make it work. And, there's a lot that he's learned about our culture that he wants to implement in our future children's lives. So, yeah. I guess that's just a bit of a breakdown of how it all started and where we are today. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I love it. Like, I love the stories because, these are things that you get to go back and tell your children.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool. Yeah, which is so cool. And so, so, that's how, you shared about, how you guys have met. You shared about the dauntingness moments that you've had, being in the kitchen and just feeling like stressed out and be like, I have no clue. But I guess my question to you now is, what's some of the things that, solidifies you both as a couple? You guys do videos together, you guys create content. But the way I see it is like, I'm curious to know, like, how do you guys solidify each other? Like, how do you guys kind of keep each other grounded? What's kind of the key things that you guys follow?
I think communication and trust is definitely a big key. And also just being like, we're our own selves, but we're in a relationship together. I think, like, recently I got a message on Instagram from someone who said, how do you deal with insecurities in a relationship to a point where you can't trust that person? And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good question. But I think when it comes to insecurity, if that other person's making you feel insecure and, is emotionally abusing, then obviously that's a problem. But if you're dealing with insecurities in a relationship where you can't trust someone, I think you need to work on yourself as a person. Like, insecurity stems from not having confidence within yourself. Yep. And I feel like if we've got insecurities that we need to work on them ourselves. We can't rely on the other person in the relationship to help us get over them, because insecurities stem from us inside. Unless, like I said before, the other person is, creating those insecurities. But, I guess for us, we just try and build each other up. And if there's anything that's bothering us, we just straight out. We communicate. That is
100%,
like
real normal.
It is. Yeah, there is nothing better than saying how you feel, rather than arguing and not talking to each other for hours or even days. I don't know how some people do it. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I can't. If there's something wrong, I'm like, tell me what's wrong. Like, I need to know. Like, I can't move forward and do things until things have been talked about. And if they're not fixed right then in the moment, at least like, you can walk away, have a breather, and then come back. Like, I can't just sit inside. Like, silence is definitely something that I struggled in with our relationship, is being a closed book and not expressing how I felt. If there was something I wasn't happy about, I would always be like, give him the silent treatment, or be like, oh, no, nothing's wrong. But Chris has really worked on me to help me express my emotions and my feelings without feeling like, I've busted down my pride, because, it comes down to pride and, always having the last say and things like that. And it's always, when it starts to feel like that, is when it starts to feel like a competition. I think, I guess, you just have to have that communication. That's all I can say, is communication and expressing how you feel. And if you're in a good relationship, you'll feel comfortable to do that. And that feeling will be there where you just want to express yourself. So, that would definitely is what keeps us together. And also supporting each other, like, constantly, always making sure that we're checking in on each other to making sure that we're okay. Like, when I was saying before, it was hard for Chris to come into my family, and it was confronting. It was scary for him. And for me, the best thing I could do was to make sure that I was supporting him and, standing my ground when I knew that he was being mistreated, because that was the person I loved, but also helping him see the side to my family and like how things work in our family. So it's just being the middle person for both and making sure that, you're seeing both sides. And I guess that's pretty much about it. And and also not judging each other with always being not judging each other, and just just being loving towards each other, I guess. Yeah,
I love it. And it's cool because it actually leads to my next question, which is I'm listening to everything that you're sharing about your relationship with Chris, and a question that I had in my head is, this morning when I was going for my run, I was thinking about, what's some of the questions that I could ask, and I'm like, I got a real good question. So, because you're the first female special guest that we had on the Impact podcast show, for some people might be like, bro, this is weird. Like, I've never actually heard it from a female perspective, and I really want to milk it. I really want to, actually take the time out to be like, what? I feel like there are either guys out there that are, wanting a female's perspective, or there are women out there that are saying, I'm in a relationship and I want my man to know, that what I'm doing is right, and certain things like that. So, yeah, you know what I mean? So the question I want to ask you is, for the guys out there, what are some of the things that we need to know in terms of a female, in terms of you, you being in the female side, for us men, like we're probably single focused, or like, this is the way. No, you got to think about this way. So I want to kind of explore on that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to listen. Like when your woman speaks, like just listen. And even if you don't agree, and you disagree, and you're like, I don't even want to hear this, just listening is probably the best. It's just the best thing you could give your partner, like just listening. And not just when I say like listen, like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, but actually listening, thinking about it, and actually, taking on board of what your partner's saying. So that's definitely a key, is listening. Probably another thing is just making sure that it's time. You're making time for your partner as well, and listening to her and absorbing her love language, because everyone has a different love language, and females tend to have the same sort of love language, where just taking notice of what she's doing and listening to what she's doing or what she's trying to say. I guess that's honestly the best advice that I could give, because I know that if there's something that I'm not happy about, I just want to be heard. And if there's something that, like, if I want to show my appreciation to Chris, I do appreciate it when he appreciates it as well. So, like, just to feel appreciated, and simple things like being cooked a meal or your washing's been done, little things like that, I thank you. And, hey, I really appreciate you doing these things. Thank you so much. Like, you may think, oh, no, it's part of her job. It's what she's meant to do. But just take that moment to truly thank her, and you'd be surprised at what that can actually do. Yeah.
All right, people. All right, all the guys out there. This is a lady talking about this, okay? So take some notes. All right. You should be taking notes from this.
Yeah. And if you don't enjoy cooking, you be straight up. Like, honesty is also the key as well. Like, if your partner can't take back criticism, or she gets a bit of attitude, just be going more to depth in how you can communicate to her, like positive feedback. You start with the criticism feedback, and then you end with the positive. That's the best way to address it with any issue, whether it be any issue that you have in a relationship.
It's like they call it the sandwich, it's like you have the sandwich, it's like positive, negative, and then positive.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Oh, let's crack up. Yeah. So so you've shared about that. I want because I feel like the ladies, I want to reach out to the ladies out there that are listening through. So we've spoken about the guys, right? These are things that the guys should be aware of. But I guess from you being the partner of Chris, what's one thing that you've learned about yourself that you could kind of share to the females out there, in terms of, some of the things that, maybe Chris has told you, like, oh, you should stop doing this, stop doing that. It's probably been something out there. And because I feel like, there might be a, one of the girls out there, one of the ladies, that, I don't know, maybe prideful, or they think that they know everything. And I'm not saying that that's everyone, but what's one thing that you've learned in terms of yourself being in a relationship with Chris?
Definitely to bust those walls down. Like, like females, a lot of females have, I for one have had to do this as well, is not having your walls built up to make you look good, because that does more damage than it does good. In a relationship, it takes two to make it work. And if you've got these walls up because you've got this attitude, then you need to really address that within yourself. I feel like, we have habits because there's a lot of, we listen to music, we watch TV shows, we look at other females out there who may address, Chris just turned the lights on, sorry, and he's like, okay, that's very bright. But so just making sure that you are not looking at any situation, your perspective is open, and you're not letting your attitude get in the way of making decisions for your relationship or how you see the other person in the relationship. Because I know I definitely sometimes have an attitude, and I can let my hormones get the best of me to a point where I may say things out of anger, out of frustration, and then you come back like an hour later, like, wow, I can't believe I just said that. I was just trying to hurt the other person, and I was a fool. Like, I regret it because, so just trying to work within yourself to, I don't know, whether I meditate and I listen to other podcasts of other female speakers who talk about mindfulness and, just trying to, when you have that negative thought in your head, sometimes I know a lot of girls can picture scenarios in their heads and that can stem from insecurity. However, you just need to train your mind to snap back from it so that you can make the right decisions in your relationship, and you're not building any toxic behavior or habits from that attitude that you might have. So it's working with your attitude and just being willing to love and to open your heart fully. It's a bit all over the place, sorry, but I just like all these words coming out, but that's
totally fine. I feel like you're already adding value to all the people out there, just sharing the story and also sharing your relationship, because I feel like you don't have to be a Tony Robbins, or you don't have to be the flashiest person in the world to share your advice. I think we need, for me personally, I've learned from people that are just normal human beings, and I've probably got just as much wisdom from them based on the experience. And so I can sense that people are going to receive a lot of value from this, especially all the guys out there that are wanting a PI girl, and the girls out there that are trying to figure out, why isn't my man feeling like loved, and so many things like that. These are things that happens, and I'm actually happy that I was able to get you on board.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I guess the last thing I want to kind of talk about before we wrap up is the real purpose as to why I really wanted to get you on. We've spoken about the story. We've gone through like well over an hour of just having a chat about your story. And as I mentioned, the whole goal is before the glory, there's always a story. And I want to wrap up by talking about all the wins. All the wins that you've made. In terms of being a content creator and just being an influencer on in the social media space. So, did you want to kind of talk to us briefly on how that happened? Because I'm curious myself. I'm like thinking it's been for a while. It's been happening for a while now. Like it didn't just happen last year or anything like that. I started posting like little skits to my Facebook page in 2016, and they would do really well because a lot of people could relate to the little skits, and they were like, I don't know if you remember Vine. Yes. So I would do like little Vines and just upload them, and
a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, like so funny. And I was like, oh, people find me funny. That's pretty cool. So then I would just make skits on things that I guess a lot of people could relate to. And at the same time, that was when my relationship with Chris started as well. So he actually got me a GoPro for Christmas. I think it was our first Christmas together. And I started using that and creating videos using the GoPro of us just hanging out, like going for swims, like, and playing around with edits. And I kind of grew like a bit of a passion for it. Like, oh, this is really cool. Like, and then I was like, oh, there's a thing called vlogging. People vlog. So I found that, and then I was like, oh, we've got a Europe trip coming up. We should definitely vlog our whole trip. So I dragged Chris to the camera store, and we spent so much money on a vlogging camera. And he was like, you better use it. You better start, like, you know, making something of it. And I was just like, yeah. And then I started researching programs to use, and then I found myself in the little wormhole of like Adobe Premiere Pro tutorials. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can do so many cool things with this. So I started following all these content creators, and I was like, wow, they're so inspiring. And while that was all happening, I was still doing the skits in the background as well on my Instagram and Facebook. And then Chris started to jump on board with the skits because he actually would give me the ideas, and then I would do the skits. So he was one like, do this.
There's always a person.
He's the one that has all the ideas. So he was like, do this video as a video. And I was like, oh. And so we were doing our vlogs, and I was doing the skits, and then he jumped on the board with the skits, and then he started posting more, and people started to see him come out of his shell with YouTube as well. They're like, well, if you watch our vlogs from the start, he was really shy. And as to where he is now, like, yeah, it's so crazy to think that, like, from him at the start of all this vlogging and social media and content creating, how far he's come. He has done so well, and he's inspired a lot of guys out there as well. And his audience, predominantly in the male figure, has grown so much. And I think that's, I guess, our power as a couple is coming together and doing it together, is that we can help females and males relate, and also laugh. Like, I think that's the key thing. That is honestly us 24/7. We're always mocking each other constantly, and we're always laughing. So I guess with the camera, we just had to learn how to make sure that we were able to put that on camera as well, because we wanted to remain as raw and also as authentic as possible. So that's how it all started. And then we went to Europe, traveled Europe, and then we got a bit of traction from our Europe vlogs. A lot of people were seeking advice from us on how we did it, how much we saved, all those sorts of things. And then we also had a bit of people coming to us saying how much they adored our sense of humour or how we were as a couple. And so I guess we just really worked on those key points as a couple, and we just listened to our audience, make sure that we were showing them more of what they wanted, but also remaining real to ourselves, because that's so important.
I guess that's the fine line, I guess that's the fine line between those that actually succeed in the content creation space. Like, you know, not just being yourself, but also listening to the audience and being like, okay, what is it that they need? And like being the bridge. Like, I think that's what I see. Being the bridge. And I'm cracking up in my head. I'm just thinking like, oh, I don't want to laugh because like it's funny, but it's true. You know what you do. And I think the big thing that I love about, you know, used to is that you, like, the way that you are on camera is the way that you are off camera. You know, the way that you guys are doing your skits, like, that's who you guys are. Like, it's not something that it's just an act and then you guys walk away. And, like, which is cool, because then for you guys, it's like, we can literally do a skit right now. We don't have to fake it till we make it. Like, this is us, which is cool. I think, you know, some people out there, maybe you focus on other things, as in, like, you know what, I'm going to be like you guys. I'm gonna be like, hey, let's do it like this, or like, be yourself, you know, be authentic, because that's what people want.
It's so true. And like, another thing is, I think what we're having, not really an issue, but what we're struggling with at the moment is making sure that we're providing content to all the different categories of things that we want to share. So like with the health and fitness, we've been really enjoying that. And that is a big part of our lives at the moment is fitness.
Yeah.
And so, weighing out to make sure that we got the skits, we got the fitness videos going to give people ideas on how to work out, because that's also helping our audience as well. And, I love to cook. That's like one of my favorite things to do. So making sure that I'm sharing enough recipes. And I guess our whole purpose of this whole social media thing is helping people, whether it be making them laugh or making better, healthier options in life with fitness and eating, or just any type of positive inspiration that we can give to our audience. I guess that's the whole purpose of it all. That's our whole why, and our whole reason behind it. And yeah,
I love it because that's like it's helped me out in terms of building, doing what I'm doing. Like I've just got into the content creation game, and I look at your guys' stuff and I'm like, yo, like there should be more of us. I feel like us PRs, we're really creative. We do have a creative eye, and I
definitely
guess
we're very talented. Very talented people as well, and we just need to stay motivated and help and support each other too. I think that's very important, is making sure that we're all helping each other to be better and just share our talents with the world. Yeah,
for sure. And so so we've spoken about like all this stuff, and I'm just about done. But the last thing I want to kind of ask you before ask the actual real question is I think when I first started following you, you were doing some sort of I think it was 24 films. You're doing a bit of videography before?
Yes. So I actually got asked by a friend this is how it all started. I got asked by a friend to film her friend's wedding video, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And I kind of always wanted to get into it. I was like, I love watching wedding films, and I love creating films based around romance. I'm like a hopeless romantic. So I was like, I'd love to. And then from then on, I just started getting inquiries, and I guess having my social media platform really helped bring in that clientele. So then I was like, I think I might have a crack at it and just start offering it as a service. So I started doing that, and I was getting lots of messages from people asking to film their weddings. And as time went on, I got better and I felt like more confident in filming weddings. And to be honest, I just loved it so much that it didn't feel like work to me. It felt it was just fun. Yeah, it was just so much fun. I'm like, and then getting paid to film a wedding, it was just like bonus. Because it was enjoyable. I mean, it's full on, like filming a whole wedding is very full on, but I think the editing and piecing together the film, that's the part that I love so much. And that's pretty much how 24 Films started. And every now and then I'd get events and gender reveals, baby showers and things like that. And I just love making people feel good, because I feel video is going to be the new way of the future. Like everybody loves to watch a video as opposed to a photo. A photo is awesome, but videos tell more of a message and speak more, and people can feel more inspired when they're watching a video. So I guess that was the element that I loved about it. Yeah. And so that's how 24 Films started. And at the moment, it's a bit stale because obviously COVID, but even before COVID, I'm going to be brutally honest, I was very slack with updating, but it's not like I haven't been doing work, because I've actually got a bunch of weddings that I just need to post onto the Instagram page. So if any of you guys are going to go check out 24 Films, hopefully it's all updated and I've put some fresh content on there, because it's looking a bit dry at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I think, for me, I was inspired by your work, by the work that you're doing, and I was curious myself. I'm like, I wonder what's going on with that. It's just it's a question. That's all. I feel like I think we've got enough content. Like we have enough content for this podcast, and so I'm gonna start wrapping up now, because I know that you really value your time. And I sure do value my time too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
I guess the last question that I've got for you is, you've shared a lot. You've spoken about your story, your upbringing. You shared about your relationship with Chris, and then you started talking about your skits and your content creation. You've spoken about all these things, but I guess the last thing I would like to ask you is, what's one encouragement or what's something on your heart that you can possibly share to not just the ladies, but also just the guys out there, just people in general that you feel in your heart?
I feel if you really, truly, deeply want to do something, whether it be starting a business, whether it be starting a podcast or a vlog or anything in life, you are accountable to start that, and it is up to you. And all I can say is be confident. If you're passionate about something and you want to go ahead with it, just do it. Do your research, educate yourself, and just try your best to keep teaching yourself, and you can never be underskilled at something. There's always room for involvement, and there's always room for progress. And if you feel like you're not confident, then that's when you need to go out and you need to research and teach yourself. But yeah, just believe in yourself, I guess, in anything that you do, and always be true to yourself. That's truly important. Don't, filter your values, your morals, or your beliefs to fit a criteria of other people just to suit them or just to succeed, because that's not what succeeding is about. It's about being you and, doing well and not losing your way and just being yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And also, last thing, if you have the opportunity to help someone in any way, do it, because you'd be surprised at how many people would be in the same boat as you, or who are wanting to do the same thing. And you could definitely inspire someone by doing something that you really love or following your dreams. So yeah, if you can do it, do it.
Yes. All right, cool. That's a really good encouragement. That's encouraging me to continue to do what I do. So I appreciate you,
awesome,
Valaree, for jumping on. But yeah, I just want to say, that is all that we got for this, podcast session. I want to say thank you to everyone that's listening. But Valaree, what's the best way that people can connect with you?
I would say Instagram message, but I get so many messages, and it's so hard to make sure that I'm replying, because when I reply to people, I like to make sure that I read their message and I reply, not just saying, oh, thank you, like actually make the time to talk to them. So you can DM me on Instagram. If I don't get back to you, if I get back to you like 3 weeks later, it's only because I want to make sure that I reply properly. So, but if you, I guess I always trying to make a new thing where I hold myself accountable to replying to comments when I can. So that, and always just message me. I'm always there.
Yeah, sweet. So for all those that are watching this on YouTube, it'll be down in the links down below. And then for those that are on, listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just check out our Instagram. And she's actually on our following, the following section. So we are following her. So you guys can just go through there and you can choose, and then connect with her. So, I was going to say, sis, thank you so much for jumping on board.
No, that's all good.
Heaps for jumping on.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice. And I think before we jumped onto the Zoom, I was like, oh, do I want to do the second training this afternoon? I just want to nap. But I'm like, man, I'm ready. I feel so refreshed and rejuvenated after that. You just pulled out all these things from it. And I'm like, yes, I'm ready to go train again. So, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hope everyone's staying safe and well during this whole pandemic. And just remember that we'll come out of this stronger and better.
Yes, that is right. So, guys, that is all that we got. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.